Everyone. Welcome students from all over the globe for our webinar today for Nifty. I'm going to give people a few more minutes to kind of sign in and register, but we're so excited to have you as people are zooming in for today's session. This is one of our first World Series of Innovation webinar sessions to help you Nifty students think about your ideals, guide you as you are thinking about ways to change the world with your different innovative solutions. So we're excited for you all to be here today. I'm excited for our guest presenter, who is a Nifty all-star, but I'm going to give us just a minute and then we're going to get right into things. But welcome. Thank you for being here. And if you want to tell us in the chat, tell us where you're zooming in on the webinar from. I know we have students from all over the globe, which is a great thing about the Network for Teaching Entrepreneurship. So tell us maybe in the chat where you're in from, and I see people already here. Thank you, thank you. Welcome. Again, welcome. So glad to have you here today. And throughout the process, if you have any questions, you can reach out to myself or my colleague Cheyenne, who's a part of the Nifty team, and we can help you throughout this entire webinar today. And happy Thursday. Could be different time zones all over, but maybe you're at least on the same day. Happy Thursday to everyone. And then I'm going to go ahead and one more minute, and then we're going to get started. And we will be recording this as well for anyone who's unable to attend. So if you're watching the recording, thank you for watching the recording. Thanks for following up and just being connected in the midst of the Nifty ecosystem. And hello from India. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and get it started now, just in the interest of time. My name is Anthony Curtis. I'm the Senior Manager of Volunteer Programs here at Nifty, the Network for Teaching Entrepreneurship. That long title means that I get to meet and interact with incredible young people like yourself who are thinking about your entrepreneurial mindset, thinking about how you can change the world in some cool way with building your entrepreneurship skills. And I love this because in the midst of our World Series of Innovation, this allows young people like yourself, ages as young as 5 all the way to 24, to think about the world's biggest problems facing humanity today and how we can solve them. And I love the fact that so many of you are thinking about this WSI initiative and how you can be a part of it, and you get to win some cash prize money. Remember that deadline for the WSI submission is December 12th. So make sure you complete that submission before that time so you can be a part of the process. And I'm going to stop talking so you can hear from one of our incredible volunteers today. Today's topic is going to really help you thinking about your ideals and how does it begin? How do you support the opportunity? Think about that potential opportunity, validating it to make it something that's actually something you can do, and fueling your passion. And we have today one of our all-star Nifty volunteers from the New England, Boston area. He volunteers with Nifty and guest speaks quite a bit with us, and he is an entrepreneur himself. So he is going to talk to you about his business, some of our ideas, and how he went from, even as in high school, he used to have a lawnmower business, and he started that business and developed that more throughout college, and even those little ideas that turned into opportunity, and how his career has kind of advanced throughout that. And he's going to talk about just that ideation process. So Blake, I'm going to be quiet so all the Nifty students and other Nifty people in the ecosystem can hear from you.
Great. Well, thank you for having me. And let me share my screen and jump into a little presentation I have. So we're here to talk. Oh, there we go. Technology in the way. We're here to talk about where ideas begin and how to find opportunities and continue with fueling a passion. So really, I've found that opportunities come from problem solving, and problem solving, it's a math equation. It's optimism and curiosity come together to really create the fertile bed for problem solving. And I think optimism comes from practicing optimism. The world is full of pessimists and pragmatists, and pragmatist meaning that someone who is saying, well, I'm just being realistic about this. I want to be, help you by being real. And in reality, they're generally have a negative look at the world, where optimism is looking at what could be, not looking at limitations, at current limitations, but looking at what could be. And a perfect example is the sound barrier. So as they were developing jet engines and planes, jet planes. They were coming up against the sound barrier, and they felt that was an absolute barrier that planes couldn't get past, and it was 650 miles an hour approximately. And then lo and behold, they broke the sound barrier. So it was a limitation they were absolutely convinced that was there, and turns out it wasn't there. Same thing with the 4 minute mile. It took uh, years and years and years of people getting close to the 4 minute mile, and no one could break the 4 minute mile. They got to, 4 minute, 10 seconds, whatever, but no one could break the 4 minute mile. And they felt that that was a limitation till someone did. And as soon as someone broke the 4 minute mile, I think like 6 or 7 people broke it like within a month. So it came that someone had to prove that that barrier wasn't real. And that's what I think is practicing optimism, is thinking about what could be. Later on in the process, there's times to be pragmatic, to be realistic, to understand the challenges that face you and how to overcome them. But in that moment of ideation, you need to just be practicing optimism, practicing curiosity, and imagining what could be. And that is, I find, the key to the entrepreneurial mindset. So these are some of the companies I've owned throughout my life. The first one in the upper left-hand corner, Precision Landscaping, that was what Anthony was referring to. I had a landscape company in high school and college, and that kind of started my entrepreneurial journey. Um, but more, I want to talk about my current companies, and I think it's a perfect example of some of the uh, finding how to find opportunities. So Near, the company in the upper left, was a company I bought in 2010. I was actually managing it for somebody, and they were retiring, and I bought that company from them in 2010. And it mainly provides services for the power generation industry. Those customers had a problem, they had a safety problem, and part of that was having standby rescue teams. So again, by listening to my customers and understanding they had a problem, I met someone who was kind of working in that space, and he's my co-founder, and we started Industrial Safety and Rescue. Um, so now I've got two companies working for a similar client base, and Industrial Safety and Rescue then starts working for all sorts of different companies and has grown. And they get into safety training, and then our customers that we're training, they see the equipment that we use on the rescue, they see the equipment that we're training with, and they ask if they can buy it. So then we open the rescue depots, and that goes into equipment sales. So again, we're listening to our customers. They're having trouble sourcing, finding good pricing, getting good recommendations on which equipment to buy. So we created a company to take advantage of an opportunity that our existing customer base told us they had. And then around the same time, uh, again, a lot of our existing customer base says there's an opportunity in providing safety consultants, safety professionals on job sites to oversee the safety. So again, I partnered with another person who is a safety professional, and we started Professional Safety Enterprise in 2023. And now she's up to having, I think, 12 safety professionals on different job sites across New England and even in Virginia. So she's grown quite quickly. And again, uh, these are all opportunities that came from existing relationships. Personally, about my mindset, I've always been curious about how things work. Even as a child, before we threw things away, if something broke, big or small, my parents, because it was going to the trash anyways, my parents let me take it apart. Obviously, they would unplug the electronics before I took those apart, but I was allowed to take things apart. And if we went to the dump, I could grab things and take them apart just to find out how things worked. Um, Also, part of how I think is when I'm frustrated, I ask myself, why am I frustrated? What is it about this thing that is giving me difficulty? And what could be better? Is there something I can change about it? Is there something that doesn't exist that could exist? Is there something that exists and I just um, I'm not making use of it? So then I do some research. So the formula again I have for here is I feel that curiosity can turn frustration into opportunity. It I take that thing that myself or other people are wrestling with or having trouble with, and I look at it and I do research. It's now a lot easier in the world because we've got Google, um, and so we can ask questions. We have AI. We can ask questions of AI and really start digging down into are there existing solutions, and do those existing solutions actually work? So how do you take problems and turn them into opportunities? So, we have something that's frustrating us, we're curious about that, but how does that become an opportunity? I found that it really comes from listening to people and asking questions, not in pursuit of finding problems and finding opportunities, but again, feeding that curiosity. Um, Optimism and curiosity are just like your muscles. You need to practice, you need to lift them, you need to use those skills to make them stronger and better. The more you know about the world, the more things you can adapt to become problem solving. So, one of the things that really changed for me and has helped my kids and other people is I asked them, and I'll challenge you, do you know what your parents do? Do you know, and I mean, not just my dad's a dentist or my mom's an accountant or they work in marketing. What do they do every single day? How do they do it? What tools do they use? What software do they use? Why do they use those? Why does their job exist? Do they work for somebody or do they work for themselves? Do they have people working for, how does all of that work? And that's a resource you have right there. I can tell you, your parents are going to be very excited that you're curious about what they do, but also you're learning. You're not learning so that you can do the same thing, but you're learning because that is information that you will be able to use and adapt further on down the line. The more you can do that, start with your parents, then you can start with aunts and uncles or parents or parents of friends or other just people in your life. As you start getting into that practice of curiosity, you will start to see connections. You're going to see, oh, this person does this and this person does kind of the same thing, even though they're in different jobs. Oh, isn't that interesting that they're both using the same software package? Again, that's information that just gets stored in your own personal database that is going to come up later on. Now, as you hear these things, as you hear from people and what they do, how they do it, why they do it that way, and you synthesize all this other information, it's just a natural tendency. It's how the human brain works. We are problem solvers. What makes us different than the monkeys and chimpanzees and the apes, the great apes that we're related to, is our brains, is our ability to problem solve, to see a problem and synthesize a solution. That comes from experience and seeing other things and experiencing other things. So then we're able to offer ideas to help solve people's problems. And part of that is a conversation. It's not like, oh, I've got the solution. And if they go, oh, that won't work, then everyone just walks away. Oh, that won't work. Okay, why won't that work? Oh, because of this and this. Oh, now I see. You know what? You're right. Let me go back and think more on that solution. Or they may go, oh, that won't work because of this. Well, tell me more about that because I don't actually see that as a problem. I won't work because of my boss. Well, what about your boss makes that not work? Is this something you could explain to your boss? And again, the solution's there. So keep on going, asking and why innocently, not in an accusatory way, not in a defensive way, but just again being curious. And people want to feed curiosity. I found that this is kind of the cycle of innovation that I would say initially I didn't use intentionally, but as I've thought about this problem, this is actually the process that my brain goes through is I identify the problem. I see that thing that frustrates me or is frustrating somebody else. And then that sparks a curiosity. Why? Why does that exist? Why does that exist that way? Um, and as I'm going through that process, my brain starts generating ideas. They're very loose and kind of, just kind of general thoughts. But as I think about it and ask questions, more questions about it, they start to coalesce into an idea. And it really generates a potential solution. And then I can take action. And that action can be um, developing a business plan on it. Or so currently there's a problem. I was telling Anthony about this earlier. I'm in the process of hopefully creating my very first invention. I just sent out the files out to be 3D printed. It's a tool that'll be used in the safety world that solves a gap. It solves a problem that exists. Um, so that's my taking action. There was a problem. I wondered why solutions didn't already exist for this problem. I came up with my own solution, and now I'm taking action by designing a prototype. I will then test the prototype, and if it works, then that's something that I will take further action to discover the opportunity, to do the math and the economics of it, reach out to customers, see if they would be willing to pay for it, how much compared to how much it cost me to produce this thing. So that's kind of the cycle of innovation I go. This time it's on an actual physical device, but it also does that for services. As I said, my very first company, my landscape company, that was opportunity. A friend's father wanted some yard work done, and so he was willing to pay. He could have done that yard work, but he didn't want to do that yard work. So there was an opportunity for a kid who wanted to earn money. I said, sure. I had a friend join me and we worked together in the guy's yard. As we were working, his neighbor hired us to do almost the same thing in his yard. And then that neighbor hired us again. And by that time, the two of us were like, hey, I think we got a business here. So we put an ad in the local paper and we were being hired by people to do yard work. And then we bought some lawn mowers and we were mowing lawns. All those things are something that someone else can do. But the problem was they didn't want to do it. These are people who, working all week, earning good money, and didn't want to spend their leisure time mowing lawns. I was a young kid who wanted money. I was very willing to take their money and mow their lawn for them. So again, it's an opportunity. I sparked curiosity. Is that something I can do? It was. Had an idea. Let's do it. We took action. So this is another thing. So I windsurfed in high school, a little bit in college, and uh, I taught windsurfing. And this is a lesson I learned very on and it served me very well. With windsurfing, the trick of not falling into the water is to not worry about falling in the water. If you're thinking about falling, you are going to fall. Your brain goes to where you're thinking. And if you're thinking about falling, you're not focusing on all the things you need to do to not fall. You're taking some of that brain capacity that is telling you how to adjust the sail, how to balance yourself, how to do that, how to catch the wind. And part of your brain is now thinking about, oh, I don't want to fall in the water. I don't want to fall in the water. And so you're missing cues that you need to be picking up. The other part I learned that, especially with windsurfing, you're going to fall. So when you do fall, you get back up. That is the essence of entrepreneurship. You are going to get setbacks. You are going to get things. You're going to get people to say, no, you can't do that, or that can't be done. You're going to meet the pessimists in your life. Get back up. That, curiosity and resiliency are the true essences of entrepreneurship, of pushing yourself forward and getting beyond that hurdle. There are constant hurdles. I've been doing this for a long time. I've owned lots of businesses. I've sold them. Some have failed along the way. Um, as I always say, I have the physical, emotional, and financial scars of failure, but I also have the benefits of successes. And my successes came because I pushed through my failures. So, kind of to bring it all together is ask questions. Always be curious. I was going to put it ABC. Always be curious.
Mhm.
Um, get back up, and practice fuels passion. A lot of business leaders and experts come and do talk, and they say, follow your passions. Your passions come from the things that you become good at, and you become good at the things you practice. So if you love art, practice art, and you're gonna be more passionate about art because you're going to be better at art. If you want to be uh, a great athlete, practice those athletics. That gets better, and then that fuels that passion. If you want to get better at being an entrepreneur and being curious, practice curiosity, and it will fuel that passion about being curious and understanding how that world works. Just understand that how that world works today, with your help, it will work better tomorrow. So don't take the limitations of the world that is existing today as that or the of that those are the limitations. If our ancestors 100 years ago took the limitations that were presented to them 100 years ago, we wouldn't be on Zoom today. So take those things, understand the world as it exists, but be curious and passionate and questioning that it can be better. How can it be better? How can I make it better? So
So
I'm going to say, it's now your turn. What problems do you see around you, and how can you take your curiosity and turn them into opportunities?
I love that. I think first of all, those are great questions to answer in the chat. Some our students I see you here, teachers I see you with some of your students here too in the webinar. What problems do you see around your world? Okay, around wherever you are. Blake, can you keep that slide up actually?
Oh,
And
yeah,
then
yeah.
how could you turn that curiosity into actual opportunity? So that what problems you see, go ahead and put us a couple in the chat too. But also I want to give some time too. If you have questions, put it in the chat. You can send it to me or to Cheyenne, and we'll ask the question for you so Blake can answer. But as I'm doing that and letting students kind of think and even think about these questions, I think, Blake, love what you said here about problem you see around the world. For some of you students I know or young people, because WSI is for students ages up to 24, you may be thinking about, oh, how can I solve that problem, right? Related to financial literacy, related to AI and entrepreneurship, related to mental health and well-being and social economic well-being. You may think about how do I solve this? So think about problems you see related to that, as Blake has kind of mentioned, and then being curious about that. And Blake, one thing I love that you said the power of curiosity, which I actually just did an activity recently with. I got to be childlike in curiosity and ask questions and think. And I was like, I haven't been childlike and just curious about something in a long time. As an adult, we kind of lose that. And it made me think about what you said. That was great advice too for a few people I know who joined later. Blake said, to kind of enhance your curiosity, ask your parents about what they do. Your parents, your guardian, people in your life. Maybe it's that uncle, that grandfather. Tell me more about your business. And I remember, and when I was in high school, I actually did it for my mom. My mom was in the mortgage industry. I am not in finance. That's not my jam. But I got to learn from her and actually do some visits, and I got an internship at her job. And I learned about data entry. I do a lot of data entry now at Nifty in my work, but I learned about it there in the system. So my mom and I always talk about Salesforce and how it has evolved so much from when she was working there years ago, but I would have never even just learned that if I hadn't been an intern, even asked, Mom, tell me more about what you do. Can I come visit your office one day? And kind of learn from it. So I love that whole idea of curiosity, letting that kind of influence you. And then, Blake, one question I did have for you. Um, Thinking about, well, how, give me an example of something where it went from like this idea and you just beginning idea and you're like, how am I going to let this grow? I know the landscape, and that was a great example of how that started into an opportunity. Maybe another idea, and then it just kind of brainstorms something bigger for you.
So I have on my personal drive, I've got a file called ideas. So every now and then, when something pops into my brain, I kind of write these things out. So one, and it exists today. So one of the I used to get frustrated. Now I get excited by it. Is when I see one of my ideas that I wrote down but didn't take advantage of and now exists. So my wife is from Colombia, and I've really fallen in love with empanadas, which is, it's basically turnovers.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And uh, up in Boston, you couldn't find empanadas. You had to go into really kind of the neighborhood, small little areas. They weren't widespread. So I was like, well, why doesn't it exist? What would it take to exist? And just the way my brain worked, sat down and started thinking about, well, we could create a brand. There'd be a restaurant. Would it be a food truck or a restaurant? How would we make them? What does it take to make them? What are the ingredients? And try to source that. And I kind of built a business plan, um, uh, and some variability to it. And I, sketched out a logo, but it was just a personal exercise that I went through, again, out of curiosity. I didn't have the
Mm,
time, money, or bandwidth to do it because I had other businesses going on. Since then, there are other empanada businesses in my area, and of different countries and different origins. Some do multiple, some just do like their country's empanadas, and I take advantage of that. But it was again a personal thing. I was like, oh, this is yummy. I'd like to get more. Where can I? I can't. I don't like that answer. I don't like that answer that I can't get that thing I want. So
yeah.
how can I get that thing I want? And at the time I was like, so that was one. And I've got a list of probably, a couple, probably 10 more kind of business ideas that, are half baked, half fleshed out. But again,
Hmm.
they're a frustration. Um,
Yeah, yeah.
and I've done that
Uh,
with individuals of like, someone asked me, how do I do that? And I said, well, sit down. What upset you in the past 24 hours? What frustrated you or someone you know? And they said X, Y, Z.
mhm.
And we just go through the process. Well, how would you solve that problem?
Love that one. So I have a question from one of the attendees, Angele. And Angele, I hope I'm saying your name correctly. And Angele, if I need you to, I'll let you unmute too in a little bit too. But the question from Angele is, any tips on how to get funding without spending a penny with just the pure idea and MVP?
Yes, go find people who have that problem. Find the people who have that problem. Ask them how much would they spend on that problem, and then say, would you give me half up front? If I can solve that problem for you within the next week or month or whatever the timeline is to create that solution, say, will you give me half? If we agree that, you you want empanadas. We're going to go back to empanadas. You want empanadas, you can't get empanadas. If I can get you empanadas and you'll spend $5 per empanada, will you give me $2.50 right now? And I promise you by the end of the week you'll have, the empanadas you want. Those kind of things. And you're going to get no probably 9 out of 10 times. But that 10th time, you're going to get yes. And then you do that again. So you ask 20 times. Now you got two people who gave you money. And then you do it again. Now you've got three people who gave you money. How much money do you need to get that solution? And now you go back to the other 28, 27, and say, okay, now that I have this, now I have the solution, give me money and do the solution. So there, I have found that there's always someone who wants to help people who've got a good idea. But it also
And I would,
from optimism and being positive, but you'll hear a lot of no's, but no is just, it doesn't work for that individual at that time. There's, I don't know, 8 billion people in the world. So
yeah.
yeah, keep asking, always keep asking.
And we have time for one more question. And I'm gonna so someone put in the chat, in India, the gig economy is a major issue right now with a lot of qualified youth stuck in the gig economy, trapped due to lack of employment opportunities. Sorry, I'm just making sure in the chat I can see all the entire question. Um, and then the question, the part is that many I can't see all of this. Um, I'm sorry. I'm just trying to see it all in the chat. I can't. Okay, I have them do it this way. Okay, yeah, now I can see it better. Okay, so I'm gonna read the question again, so you can hear. So in India, the gig economy is a major issue right now, with a lot of qualified youth stuck in the gig economy, trapped due to a lack of employment opportunities. Many of them have qualifications such as engineering, accounting, etc., but can't get stable employment. For the PayPal challenge, so this student is working on the PayPal challenge about employment. This student says, I would they think about building a platform that allows firms to hire these people on a need basis, being paid a fixed rate for the employment duration, while still using the gig economy framework these people are used to. So it's not a question, they were kind of just sharing about kind of their solution to think about for the challenge. Blake, any thoughts about that as we kind of wrap up?
Yeah, so if you think about the gig economy, think of another gig economy that works. It can work, has some challenges, but you look at actors. In the United States, we have what's called the Screen Actors Guild, right? At SAG. And so once you get your SAG card, the more you work. So one of the problems with the gig economy is you can't get health insurance. There's other certain benefits you can't get by gigging. Well, can you build a guild that where people can come and go, can come in and leave, but they can build benefits. They can build find out what the problems are with the gig economy and build an apparatus that helps the people, the giggers, the service providers and the service needers, and solve their problems. I can tell you, as someone who's been on both sides of that gig economy, um, there's problems on both sides. What is the apparatus, and can you build something that was it is a software or business or whatever it is that helps both sides come together? If you think of Uber, right? Uber's got people who've got cars and have extra space in their cars, and you've got people who need to drive. Uber puts them together. Uber is the solution of those two. Uber doesn't own any cars, and Uber doesn't move people around. They bring the people who need a car and the people who have a car together. So there's an opportunity in there of, and there are companies that partially do. There's TaskRabbit and all these different companies that work in the gig economy, but they only work one side. They work, how does someone who needs something approach someone who has something? But they're not dealing with the benefits and the continuity and the gigger really understanding that person's company and that gigger getting other benefits, things like that. So there is space there. What we call market friction. Wherever there's market friction, there's an opportunity.
Perfect. Thank you, Blake, for that insight. And that's all the time we have today, just a 30-minute webinar session. But I just want to thank you, Blake, for sharing your insights today. Students, I want to, and not even just students, but young adults, everyone a part of the Nifty ecosystem watching this, I want you to just continue to think about, I think a couple of aha moments Blake said about the power of curiosity, right? Thinking about problems and seeing those opportunities. And then also continue to just use those ideas. That's going to fuel your passion, right? As you think about spotting those opportunities, fueling that passion, think about the world around you, continue what you're already brainstorming, like you all been telling us in the chat, these ideas you're already thinking about. Again, if you have any questions as you're working on the World Series of Innovation, your solution, your submission, reach out to us at Nifty, the Nifty team at WSI at nifty.com, and the Nifty team will follow up with you. And we also have, and Cheyenne put that in the chat, we also have office hours as well when you can meet with someone from the Nifty team, my incredible colleague Cheyenne. She can guide you and help you more as you kind of brainstorm it until that due date in September. And again, I put the chat and the link there for the challenge. And good luck as you keep working on this. Blake, thank you for inspiring us today with your words. And everyone have a great Thursday. Great Thursday. Marco, great to see you here. Thanks for being here. Have a great Thursday, and we'll send you more information. Perfect. Everyone have a great day.
Great. Thank you, everybody.